Hey, how's everybody doing? Hotep, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. So we should be broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and share this broadcast on your Facebook pages also. How's everybody doing today? I was going to do a broadcast. I'm teaching a class today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was going to do a broadcast shortly before that to talk about that, but then the news broke about the Philando Castile murder case, and the killer who killed Philando Castile was found not guilty. He was set free. So I was going to broadcast at 5 p.m. today, but I'm delayed because I was reading 3 articles about this case. So when I talk about it, I know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. So so I was pulling some things together, and then I have to teach a class also. All right, so everybody, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. All right, so we remember the case of Philando Castile. He was shot and killed July 6, 2016. He was shot a couple days after. He was shot a couple days after Alton Sterling was shot and killed. Okay, as well. And this was a high-profile case. Can you all hear me okay on Facebook? This was a high-profile case, and his fiance at the time, Diamond Reynolds, recorded the aftermath of the shooting. Right after the shooting took place, she recorded it, streamed it on Facebook Live. So we all saw the horrific video, heard her screams, etc. Right? So he was shot and killed by Jeronimo Yanez. Jeronimo Yanez appears to be Hispanic. And this took place in St. Anthony, which is a suburb of Minnesota. He was a St. Anthony police officer. Okay, I think it was St. Anthony that this took place in. I know it was a suburb. I know he was a St. Anthony police officer, and this took place in the suburbs of Minnesota. Okay, so Philando Castile got pulled over. He was pulled over because one of the officers said that they thought he fit the description of someone who was wanted, and they said he had a wide set nose. He had a wide set nose. Now, back on July 10th, 2016, the article came out from theroot.com, news1.com, other publications had this article. Report: Philando Castile was pulled over because he matched description of suspect with quote-unquote wide set nose, a wide set nose. Okay, so we're going to post this article right here on the thread of our broadcast. Okay, so you could check this out also. All right. Okay, and in the article from theroot.com back on July 10th, it talks about he was apparently pulled over by police because he matched the description of a robbery suspect with a quote-unquote wide set nose. Audio of the dispatch, audio of this conversation came out as well. And when you could hear one of the officers saying, quote, "I'm going to stop a car," end quote, and officers heard saying in the police audio scanner obtained by 2 news organizations, quote, "I'm going to check IDs. I have reason to pull it over," end quote. They go on to say, quote, "The 2 occupants just look like people that were involved in a robbery. The 2 occupants just look like people that were involved in a robbery." The officer continues, quote, "The driver looks like one of our suspects because of the wide set nose," end quote. The driver looks like one of our suspects because of the wide set nose. Okay, so apparently Philando Castile was racially profiled, number one. All right. How often do you hear that white people are pulled over because of their narrow set nose? How often do you hear white people being pulled over because they matched a suspect who had a narrow nose? I've never heard of that before. They matched a suspect who had a narrow nose. So you pull him over because he fits the description of a suspect because of his wide set nose. So he was racially profiled, okay? So we'll deal with two articles, one from NBCnews.com and one from Washington Post. They just came out within the last hour. All right. So from NBCnews.com, the name of that article, officer who shot Philando Castile acquitted of manslaughter charges. Officer who shot Philando Castile acquitted of manslaughter charges. So it says, and it's written by Safia Ali. I write articles also, so I like to acknowledge the writers of the articles. So a jury has acquitted a Minnesota police officer in the shooting death of an African-American man outside St. Paul, Minnesota last year. So he shot and killed, like I said, July 6, 2016. And this, and she said, I think it's a she, putting to an end a tragic saga that began with a routine traffic stop. Well, they didn't put it to an end. It's not over. They didn't put it to an end. I don't know if a civil lawsuit has been filed, but you're not going to hear the end of this. There should be economic boycotts behind this, starting in Minnesota. There should be economic, and we're going to talk about economic withdrawal strategies here, okay? And then I got to get ready to teach an online class at 7 p.m. St. Anthony police officer Jeronimo Yanez was charged in the July 2016 shooting of school cafeteria worker Philando Castile, in igniting protests and a call to action by civil rights activists nationwide against the deadly use of force by police. After 5 days and more than 25 hours of deliberation, after 5 days and more than 25 hours of deliberation, a jury decided that the state did not meet its burden for a conviction. A jury decided that the state did not meet its burden for a conviction. Okay, now, first of all, he was charged with manslaughter. Okay, if I remember correctly, I want to say second-degree manslaughter was the charge. For the state of Minnesota, I'm not sure what what criteria has to be met to get what criteria has to be met for a charge of manslaughter, because there are elements that have to be met in the charge. It varies from state to state. For the state of Minnesota, I don't know. I know it's an involuntary. I know the person. I think the person was killed. Number one. Number two, it was involuntary. It was unintentional to actually kill them. Okay, may not have been unintentional to shoot, but it was unintentional to actually kill them. I have to try to find out. I'm going to try to consult with Laura Coates, who's a former federal prosecutor. I've interviewed her a number of times in the past. We discussed different cases. I interviewed her regarding some of the Freddie Gray police officer trials, things like this. Okay, so if all the elements in a charge are not met by the prosecution, then the defendant walks. All the elements have to be met. Okay, I have to get more information about the elements when it comes to manslaughter. Okay, he was charged with manslaughter and reckless discharge of a firearm. Okay, now he fired his gun 7 times. He fired his gun 7 times, and right when Diamond Reynolds begins to start recording, Officer Jeronimo Yanez really seems frantic. He really, I mean, he really, it seems like something's wrong with him. Okay. So after 5 days and more than 25 hours of deliberation, a jury decided that the state did not meet its burden for a conviction of Jeronimo Yanez. He could have faced up to 10 years in prison under Minnesota state law if he had been convicted. Okay. Now, I haven't seen any evidence and haven't even heard any assertions that the prosecution tried to purposely overcharge him or the prosecution didn't do their due diligence in this case. All right. On Monday, I really wish this was a Thursday, because the next day would be Friday, and News One Now with Roland Martin would be on. It's on Monday through Friday, so we have to wait till Monday. I know they're going to talk about this Monday, and he'll have some African American attorneys on to break this case down. I'm going to see maybe if I could try to set up a interview on Zoom with Laura Coates, or maybe another attorney over the weekend. See what I can do. I don't know. It's Father's Day weekend. It's Father's Day coming up Sunday, so I don't know. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers as well. This will be my first official Father's Day, because I have a 3.5-month-old daughter. So this will be my first official Father's Day. Okay, so Yanez, Jeronimo Yanez, the officer who shot and killed him, have been charged with manslaughter and reckless discharge of a firearm for fatally shooting Philando Castile, who was 32 years old, in his car while Castille's girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, was in the car with him. She was in the passenger seat, and Diamond Reynolds' 4-year-old daughter was sitting in the back seat of the vehicle. Now, the jury determined that Jeronimo Yanez's fate consisted of, the jury that determined his fate consisted of 7 men and 5 women. So it was a jury of 12, 7 men, 5 women. 2 jurors were African American, 1 juror was, and the rest were white. Okay, so you have 10 white jurors, 2 African American jurors. All right, I don't know what happened in the deliberation. They deliberated for 5 days. After 5 days and more than 24 hours of deliberation, I don't know what happened, but what I do know is that more African Americans have to show up to jury duty. I do know that more African Americans have to show up to jury duty. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that you cannot sit on a jury unless you are registered to vote. What a lot of people don't know is that you cannot sit on a jury if you are not registered to vote. So all these Negroes running around telling you don't register to vote, you need to slap the shit out of them. Because when stuff like this pops up, then, and you have a disparity in African Americans being on the jury, a lot of time it's because, 1, many of us are not registered to vote. 2, when we get the voter notification card in the mail, we throw it in the trash can. Okay? 1, you have to be registered to vote for a number of reasons. 2, when you get that voter notification card in the mail, you have to show up. I mean, when you get the jury duty card, I'm sorry. When you get the jury duty notification card in the mail, you have to show up. You don't know what trial it is. You don't know what trial it is. Okay? So a lot of times, 1, many of us are listening to the conspiracy theorists and all these people running around telling you don't vote. Usually, notice they're broke as hell also, number 1. Usually they're broke as hell, number 1. Number 2, when you get that jury notification card, you have to show up to jury duty. Okay? Because I've reported to jury duty before. So, and I've studied this, and I know, and I've done national radio for years. And I've talked to grown adults on national radio. I guess hosted Warren Ballantyne's national radio show for about 3 months on the Empowerment Radio Network. I had my radio show, the Michael Imhotep show, on the Empowerment Radio Network. I used to guest host for Roland Martin dozens of times on his national radio show, the Roland Martin Show. He just ended his show last year, December 30th, 2016. He ended his national radio show. I've talked to grown adults who did not know that you cannot sit on a jury unless you are registered to vote. Okay? So sometimes we're victimized for our own ignorance and not understanding the law. Sometimes we're victimized for our own, a lot of times we're victimized for our own ignorance and not understanding the law. And it's a concerted effort to keep us ignorant so we can be manipulated. It's a concerted effort to keep us ignorant so we can be manipulated. Okay, so you had a jury of 12 men, a jury of 12, 10 white, 2 African American, a total of 7 men, 5 women. Now, Philando Castile's family held each other and wept in disappointment as they left the courtroom. Philando Castile's mother, her name is Valerie. She said, quote, "The system continues to fail black people," end quote. She said, "My son loved this city, and this city killed my son and let the murderer get away," she said with high emotion. Now, the city of St. Anthony put out a statement saying that Jeronimo Yanez, Officer Jeronimo Yanez, would not be returning, quote unquote, to active duty. The city of St. Anthony, which was the police department that he served on, they put out a statement saying that he would not be returning to active duty, quote unquote, and that, quote, "it would be best served," end quote, "if Yanez would no longer be an officer in the city." Okay. Personally, I don't think he should be an officer anywhere in the United States, period. Now, it's good that they're severing ties with them. I don't think he should be an officer anywhere in the United States. Now, the city said it was negotiating a voluntary separation agreement that would help Jeronimo Yanez transition into another career. Isn't that nice of them? Okay. Now, are they going to help Diamond Reynolds and her daughter transition with their life? This is a valid question. This is a valid question. Now, Philando Castile and Yanez came face to face during a traffic stop July 6, 2016 that quickly escalated into a deadly encounter live streamed on Facebook by Philando Castile's girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, who was thinking clearly, and she was smart to record and live stream as much as she could, while at the same time staying very calm, because she said she feared for her life also. Rightfully so, because you got a crazy killer cop like this on the loose. Now, in the disturbing video, Diamond Reynolds says that Philando Castile was shot several times while reaching for his ID and telling Officer Yanez he had a gun permit and was armed. So we find out he legally had a CPO. He could legally carry a gun. He was shot 7 times. Is that close? Is that close range, point blank range? He shot 7 times. The fact that he shot 7 times at close range like that tells me, really, to me, it really seems like there's something wrong with this officer. Okay. So Yanez can be heard saying, "I told him not to reach for it." Okay, and you heard him say, if you saw the video, you heard him say, "Now I don't want to play the video." You know, the videos like this, and I've done presentations dealing with this, and there's studies dealing with this. Videos like this of African Americans being shot over and over again, and they're shown over and over again, shot by police. It can have a post-traumatic stress disorder like effect on you, and it inflicts trauma on you. Okay. All right. So Reynolds can be heard responding, Diamond Reynolds. She said, "You told him to get his ID, sir, his driver's license." Quote, "He's licensed to carry," end quote, she calmly tells the camera as Castile sits beside her bleeding. "He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out of his pocket, and he let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet," end quote. Now, this is what she stated. And she also stated this in the video. It's good that she documented this, okay? Because this will probably come into play. Now, I'm not sure if his family has filed the civil lawsuit, but this will definitely come into play in the civil lawsuit. Now, on News One Now with Roland Martin, you have Monique Presley, attorney Monique Presley. And Monique Presley, she teaches classes. Very, very sharp sister. I've talked to her before. Very sharp sister. I met her about 2 years ago at the Congressional Black Caucus weekend in Washington, D.C. Now, I've talked to her a couple times. Very sharp sister. Very sharp attorney. She teaches classes on teaching people the law and how to interact with police and understanding your rights, things like this. And she says the first thing that she teaches people is to get in your mind that this is not your day to die. She said this is the first thing she teaches people, to get in your mind this is not your day to die, and all your actions after that follow along that line. Okay. Now, some people may want to jump bad and try to argue law and statutes and treaties and amendments and things like that with the officers on the scene of the crime, that's not the time to debate. That's what the court is for. The scene of the crime is not the time. The scene of the incident is not the time to debate law. That's what the court is for. All right. But just in my research since this case and understanding CPL laws, things like this, because Michigan is a CPL state. Okay, concealed pistol license, CPL, concealed pistol license. Different states are called different things. In light of this case right here, because from everything that I've seen in this case, and I have numerous articles on this case, I've been following since July 6th, just like the Alton Sterling case. It seems like Philando Castile did everything correctly. The only thing that I would suggest that's different is to make sure, and I've heard people who teach CPO classes. I've heard firearms experts recommend this also. For men, usually men carry their ID, their driver's license, in their back pocket. Have your ID on the opposite side from the side you carry your gun. Meaning that if you carry your gun on your right side, don't have your ID on your right side, because you got to reach past your gun to get your ID. You can do what you want to do. I'm just trying to give you some advice that may save your life. If you have a CPL, you carry your gun. Now under most states' laws, when you have your gun on you, you have to let the officer know that you have your gun on you. And from what I'm reading here and what read in the past, that's what Philando Castile did. He let the officer know he had his gun on him, okay? And he was licensed to carry, okay? But word of advice, you can do whatever you want to do. Word of advice, I don't recommend you carry your license on the same side of your body as your gun is on, because usually we carry our license in our back pocket. So if your gun is on your right hip and your license is in your right pocket, you got to reach past your gun to get it, and it may look like you trying to reach for your gun. Do whatever you want to do, but you can't say I didn't warn you. Okay. All right. Now, Diamond Reynolds testified during the trial that she recorded the encounter out of fear of her own life, and she was smart to do this once again. She told NBC affiliate KARE Channel 11 in Minnesota, she said, quote, because I know that the police are not protected, because I know the people are not protected by police, I wanted to make sure if I was to die in front of my daughter, someone would know the truth. Okay? In that high pressure situation, this sister had presence of mind to know, to record and document what was going on. She said, because I know that the people are not protected by the police, I wanted to make sure if I was to die in front of my daughter, someone would know the truth. Now, Jeronimo Yanez, former Officer Jeronimo Yanez, who pulled Philando Castile over because he looked like a possible armed robbery suspect, testified that, quote, he had no choice when he pulled his gun. Now, what's interesting is that his partner, who was on the scene with him, and it appears that his partner was on the other side of the car. So Yanez is on the driver's side of the car. I think his partner was on the passenger side of the car. His partner did not touch his gun and did not draw his gun. His partner, who's on the scene with him, did not touch his gun and did not draw his gun. And I think the article from the Washington Post talks about that. That's why I read multiple articles on these topics. And that's why I could have just gone live at 5 and hadn't read more. I've read numbers of articles on this case, but I needed to read the information that just came out within the last hour. I could have just gone live and dealt with emotion, but I deal with facts and evidence. Okay, I don't do all that nonsense Facebook BS talking. No, we deal with facts and evidence here. All right, so Yanez pulled Castile over because he looked like a possible armed robbery suspect. And as the article from the root.com, last year news1.com had this article also. You can Google this. Other outlets carry this article. This is from Audio Dispatch recordings. you can hear an officer. Now we don't know which officer this was, but you can hear an officer saying, quote, "I'm going to stop a car. I'm going to check IDs. I have reason to pull it over." Quote, "The two occupants just look like people that were involved in a robbery. The driver looks like one of our suspects because of the wide set nose." The driver looks like one of our suspects because of the wide set nose. So basically, he was pulled over because he had a big nose and he was a black male. This is why he was pulled over. Okay, so Yanez was with the St. Anthony Police Department for nearly 5 years when he pulled over Philando Castile's car July 6, 2016. Now, Yanez told jurors that Philando Castile did not have, quote, "regard for his commands," end quote, and he felt the motorist would shoot him. He said that Philando Castile did not have regards for his commands, and he felt the motorist would shoot him, okay? He said, quote, "I was scared to death. I thought I was going to die. My family popped into my head, my wife, my baby girl," he said, according to NBC affiliate KARE Channel 11. Now, much of the argument during the trial hinged on whether Jeronimo Yanez had a reasonable belief and fear that Castile was going to pull a gun. The shooting ignited protests in Minnesota, and there'll probably be more protests in Minnesota because of this. Okay, and there need to be sustained, targeted economic withdrawal strategies, economic boycotts, which spread across the country. And Dr. King, in his last speech, April 3rd, 1968, "I've been to the mountaintop," he said that we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. He said we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. And he talked about redistributing the pain to those inflicting pain upon us through economic withdrawal strategies. Okay, so much of the argument during the trial hinged on whether Yanez had a reasonable belief and fear that Castile was going to pull a gun. The shooting ignited protests in Minnesota. It occurred just days after the shooting death of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and came amid a heated national debate over policing and wrongful use of force. Now, it's going to be interesting if dumb Donald Trump tweets about this incident. I doubt if he will. I doubt if he will. Just like Donald Trump didn't tweet about Richard Collins III being stabbed by white supremacists, okay? There have been other incidents of like James Harris, I think was his name, in New York, who stabbed a brother with a 2-foot-long sword. I don't think Trump tweeted about that. When white supremacists attack and kill African Americans, Trump is silent. Okay? Now, if just like with the case of Hodgkinson, who shot Scalise, GOP Rep Scalise, and some other Republicans, okay? If that white man had been a Muslim, they would have been saying it was a terrorist act. If that white man had been a Muslim, right off the bat, they would have said it was a terrorist act. He would have been tweeting, "We need the travel ban. This is why we need the travel ban." Okay? Now, they're not talking about banning crazy-ass white men from America. They're not talking about, notice this, they're not talking about banning crazy white men from America. And we know domestic terrorism committed by white people is worse than terrorism committed by Muslims in this country. Domestic terrorism committed by white people is worse than terrorism committed by Muslims. All right, so it's going to be interesting to see if Donald Trump tweets about this, okay? Because he's not talking about criminal justice reform. This was a tactical mistake that Black Lives Matter made in letting this guy get voted into office, not coming out in throngs and voting, because I warned people what was going to happen. When the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the largest police union in the country, they have 330,000 members. When the Fraternal Order of Police came out late in the campaign, it was like either September or October last year. When they came out and endorsed Donald Trump, I said, whoa, I said, this is like really serious now, because Trump is very pro-police. He doesn't want to talk about implicit bias in policing. He doesn't want to talk about criminal justice reform. And he actually said on the campaign trail, he said that he felt police needed more authority. He felt that they did not have enough authority. Okay, so elections have consequences. Okay, I don't care what the conspiracy theorists say, because some of them run around lying to you all, telling you that President Obama was going to suspend the 2016 election. Some conspiracy theorists are running around lying to our people, charging them $20 to hear a lecture, lying to them, telling them that President Obama was going to suspend the 2016 election. Where are they now? Okay, now, Prosecutor Jeffrey Paulson was the prosecutor who prosecuted this case. Now, during the closing arguments, the prosecution said that Officer Yanez used deadly force, quote, as a first option rather than as a last resort, end quote, according to NBC affiliate KARE Channel 11. Prosecutor Jeffrey Paulson said, quote, he had no reason to do that. He had every reason not to do that. It doesn't make sense, end quote. But defense attorneys painted a different picture. Lawyers for Yanez told jurors that they could, quote unquote, reasonably infer that Castille was, quote unquote, stoned, high on drugs, stoned, which led him to be non-compliant with the officer. Okay. Now the shots rang out within a minute of the officers pulling the car over. Okay. Everybody share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. We're going to continue. We're dealing with facts in this case. We're not dealing with what Pebbles told Cookie that she thought she heard and all this stuff. Okay, please share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Okay, yeah, please share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. All right, so for those just tuning in, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. We're covering this breaking news story dealing with the Philando Castile case out of Minnesota. And the officer who shot and killed Philando Castile, in my opinion, in cold blood, has been found not guilty. Okay? Has been found not guilty. The jury basically said the prosecution did not meet its burden of proof. The charges were manslaughter and reckless discharge of a firearm. Manslaughter and reckless discharge of a firearm. Okay? All right. So how's everybody doing today? Eric, thanks for sharing. OC, thanks for sharing. Tommy Cross said, what facts? It sounds like you repeated the narrative to me. If you have some other facts, present them. I've been studying this case since it happened last year. Now, if you got other facts, present them. Okay, so we're going to do breaking down this case. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch. All right, now, lawyers for Yanez told jurors that they could, quote unquote, reasonably infer that Castile was stoned, which led him to be non-compliant with the officer. I'm trying to remember if marijuana was found in his blood, but just because, even if marijuana is found in his blood, it doesn't mean he was stoned at the time. It doesn't mean he was non-compliant. Okay, so defense attorney Earl Gray said, how can you 2020 this now and say Officer Yanez was wrong? He wasn't following orders. He was stoned, he said. Okay. But just because somebody is not following orders does not mean they should be shot and killed. Just because somebody is not following orders does not mean that they should be shot and killed also. Now, the Castile family's attorney expressed disappointment in the result and gave a strong warning to others. Quote, if Philando can die under these circumstances, let's be clear, each of you could, end quote, said attorney Glenda Hatchett. Now, we all know Glenda Hatchett, Judge Glenda Hatchett. We're in the documentary together, Black Friday, What Legacy Will You Leave? She was the family attorney in this case. She was not involved in the prosecution in this case. Okay, because a lot of times people get this confused. They get the family attorney confused with the prosecuting attorney. That's what people were criticizing Benjamin Crump, because they said he lost the case in Trayvon Martin. Well, he wasn't the prosecutor in the Trayvon Martin case. That was the district attorney's office there in Sanford, Florida, that was prosecuting that case. Benjamin Crump was the attorney for the family. He was not the prosecutor. If you talk to those in the legal community, they tell you Benjamin Crump is a damn good attorney. Because I have. They tell you Benjamin Crump is a damn good attorney. He's the family attorney. He's not the prosecutor. Now, here's another thing. If you want to get mad at prosecutors, vote their asses out of office. Prosecutors, the district attorney, that's an elected office. So people can't, on the one hand, sit back and complain about prosecutors not prosecuting police officers, then on the other hand, don't show up to vote prosecutors out of office. See, this is one of the things they did smart in Chicago. Because of the Laquan McDonald case and other cases, African Americans in Chicago, Black Lives Matter activists included, they ran African American attorney Kim Foxx against Anita Alvarez. Anita Alvarez was the Cook County State's attorney who it took her 400 days to bring charges against the officer who shot and killed Laquan McDonald. They had everything on video. Okay? Mayor Rahm Emanuel did not release the video until after he was reelected, because if he knew if he released it before he was reelected, he would not have been reelected. They waited until after he was reelected to release the video. It took her 400 days to bring charges against the officer. Okay? And then there been other cases where there have been problems also with her. So they ran Kim Foxx, African-American attorney, who they believe and ran on the platform of standing up to the police as well. They need a prosecutor that would do that. And they beat Anita Alvarez, and she's not the prosecutor anymore. See, that's something that has to happen. See, a lot of times people just focus on the president, but local elections are extremely important. This is why when voter suppression takes place, voter suppression doesn't just occur when you vote for president. Voter suppression occurs for off-year elections, midterm elections, things like this. Okay, so the prosecutor is an elected position. Okay, so that's extremely important. And then also, you can't sit on a jury unless you're registered to vote. So the people that tell you don't register to vote and no, don't vote all this, you should slap the hell out of them. Seriously. Because they already know don't come to me with that nonsense. All right, because if you study what's going on here and you've seen my YouTube videos, you see my shows. I'm on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation here in Detroit, WFDF. You follow our Facebook fan page. We have almost 1 million followers here. And you see my broadcast. I've been talking about the policies and the laws that Donald Trump has been revoking and reversing that were under President Obama. And it's all for the worse. It's not for the better. It's all for the worse, not for the better. People are spending too much time staying high, staying drunk, following reality TV. And if you look at the article we just posted yesterday on our fan page, the African History Network, from rawstory.com, and the Washington Post had an article similar to this 2 weeks ago. Trump administration quietly rolls back civil rights efforts across federal government. Trump administration quietly rolls back civil rights efforts across federal government. All right, check out that article from rawstory.com. All right, you can go research that. I may have time to get into a little bit of it. I want to try to finish this here. Okay, but all this ties together because Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, your Attorney General, he's against consent decrees. He's against the consent decrees. He tried to back out of the consent decree with the Baltimore Police Department. But a federal judge overruled that and said you have to comply with this. See, what a lot of people don't know, why they want to criticize President Obama, you already gotten people wishing President Obama was back in office. When they see this fool right here, we haven't seen Trump at his worst. Let an explosion break out like that broke out after Freddie Gray, the funeral for Freddie Gray, or explosion break out like in Ferguson. Okay, because Trump is law and order. That's somebody who was sending the National Guard. That's somebody who don't care. Okay, what a lot of people don't know is that under President Obama, the 2 terms under President Obama, you have more investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments under Obama than any other previous administration. You had 25 investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments, which led to 15 consent decrees. Because that is the consent decrees, which are legally binding, and there's federal oversight. That's one of the main ways to get reform in these police departments. I mean, you also have to vote for city council and mayor because they help set the tone for policing. But the consent decrees are a very useful tool. And it was under the Obama administration with its 2 African-American attorney generals that you had the most number of investigations, number 1, into the patterns and practices of police departments. Number 2, this led to 15 consent decrees. Donald Trump is against these, and so is Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. They're totally against this. Donald Trump does not want to deal with implicit bias in policing. And on the campaign trail, Mike Pence, who was the governor of Indiana, Mike Pence said that he and Donald Trump think there's too much talk about implicit bias in policing. And they felt they need to stop talking about that. Well, if you don't want to talk about implicit bias in policing, how are you going to deal with it? Now, what I'm trying to find out is under Attorney General Loretta Lynch, she ordered 33,000 federal officers to go through implicit bias training. This is towards the end of President Obama's tenure, maybe about 3 months before, maybe about 2 or 3 months before the election. And she she announced that 33,000 federal officers would have to go through implicit bias training. Is that going to stay in place under Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III? A white segregationist from Alabama who cheered the gutting of the Voting Rights Act with the Shelby County versus Holder decision, Supreme Court decision 2013. Is that going to stay in place? Probably not. See, this is an example of how elections have consequences. Okay, so the Philando Castile family's attorney expressed disappointment in the result and gave a strong warning to others. Quote, if Philando can die under these circumstances, let's be clear, each of you could, end quote, said attorney Glenda Hatchett. Meanwhile, Yanez, Jeronimo Yanez attorney, said the officer was, quote unquote, relieved to hear the verdict and that the trial was, quote unquote, fair all the way around. Fair for who? Fair all the way around. He said, quote, the verdict was correct and we're happy, the jury found it our way or something. Okay, so that's the article from NBCnews.com. Officer shot Philando Castile acquitted of manslaughter charges. All right. So he was pulled over in Falcon Heights, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Falcon Heights. Okay. Now, Officer Yanez, a partner, did not touch his gun and did not pull his gun. If you read the article from the Washington Post, Minnesota officer acquitted of manslaughter for shooting Philando Castile during traffic stop. Minnesota officer acquitted of manslaughter for shooting Philando Castile during traffic stop. They break this down. They have some other details in the article from the Washington Post that the one from NBC News doesn't have. This is why I read multiple articles on these topics so I know what the hell I'm talking about. All right. Now, in 2016, you had 963 people in the U.S. who were shot and killed, who were fatally shot and killed by police. Fatally shot. 963. The Washington Post has the most, probably the most accurate database on police shootings. It's called Fatal Force. Fatal Force. If you go to WashingtonPost.com and just search for Fatal Force, it'll come up. Look for 2017. You can go back and look at 2016 also. Okay, because as the law stands now, you have 18,500 police departments across the country, approximately 800,000 law enforcement officers. They report to the FBI fatal police shootings. So if a police officer shoot and kill someone, they report that to the FBI, but it's on a voluntary basis. It's on a voluntary basis. So the majority of the police departments is only between like 1% to about 3% of the police departments that actually report. Okay? The overwhelming majority of them do not. So the Washington Post put together this database, and this is based upon news articles, news reports all across the country, things like this. All right. TheGuardian.com has one also. That's called The Counted. The Counted. That deals with people who die in police custody, which is different than Fatal Force. Fatal Force is basically looking at those who are shot and killed by police. And they break it down by race. They break it down based upon whether the person was armed or unarmed. They have a lot of different categories. But so you could check that out. Okay. So I've said this before. I'll say it again. Now, one good thing that happened after the killings of Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, was that you saw an increase in the Black Bank movement. Hashtag bank in, hashtag Black Bank movement. So it was like July 7th when hip hop artist Killer Mike was on a radio station in Atlanta. Okay. And he talked about taking money out. He talked about in the Atlanta area, taking money out of the white banks in Atlanta and putting the money into Citizens Trust Bank in Atlanta. All right. And over the course of 5 days, Citizens Trust saw 8,000 new accounts open. And you saw this Black Bank movement spread across the country. Now, we saw it start in February of 2016 when you had hip-hop artists like Killer Mike, Jermaine Dupri, you had Usher, R&B singer Usher, and T.I., also hip-hop artist T.I., and they got together during African American History Month and encouraged African Americans to open up accounts with Citizens Trust Bank in Atlanta. All right. So if we look at the article that I wrote, and you can read all of my articles at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you look at this article that I wrote, it's called "Why Did Dr. King Tell Us to Redistribute the Pain? Understanding the Power of Economic Withdrawal." We'll put our website here, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Why did Dr. King tell us to redistribute the pain? Understanding the Power of Economic Withdrawal. Right on the home page, just click on the link, read articles by Michael Imhotep. Okay, you can read it there. All right. Then also, I got to get out of here shortly. I have to teach I teach online classes. You all know this. So we have a class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So I'm teaching that class tonight, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a 6-week, 12-hour online course. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. We'll probably start at about 7:30 tonight because I got tired with this. I did not know this verdict was going to break. I was going to come home, get something to eat, prepare for the class, do a broadcast, talk about the class because I do those before each class, and I didn't know this was going to break, so this is taking me off schedule. We posted the link there. Register here. If you want to register for the online course, check it out. It's only $40 for the entire 6-week, 12-hour online course. There's about 10 hours of bonus content also. All the sessions are recorded, so if you miss anything, go back and watch it over and over again. Okay. All right. So I wrote this article December 15, 2015. Why did Dr. King tell us to redistribute the pain? Understanding the power of economic withdrawal. Understanding the power of economic withdrawal. Okay. And in this article, I give different examples of economic boycotts, economic withdrawal that we have implemented that have worked. Okay, but when situations like this break out, number one, we definitely need to target the banks, and the reason why is because we have alternatives to white banks. We have a lot of cities have African American owned banks, okay, and then also you have credit unions as well. So there are approximately 37 African American owned banks and credit unions in the country. There are about 37 because Seaway Bank in Chicago just recently closed, okay, but you have about 37, and some fraternities and sororities have banks also, have credit unions. Some fraternities and sororities have credit unions also. I'm going to post a directory of African American online banks and credit unions, and this is from financialjuneteenth.com. Financialjuneteenth.com. Okay, so check out Financial Juneteenth. We post articles from them every day. Read websites like AtlantaBlackStar.com and YourBlackWorld.net, NewsOne.com, The Root. They have a lot of good information there to empower us also. BlackThen.com, AfricanGlobe.net. Check out all those sites. Where is my damn directory? Okay, we'll post that here in just a minute here. Okay, so in situations like this, number one, you want to target the banks, especially the banks that were involved in, they had to pay a $25 billion lawsuit to the federal government, okay, for robo-signing foreclosure notices, negotiating mortgage loans in bad faith, things like this. Okay, so we just posted a link to the database or online directory for African American owned banks and credit unions. Okay, I think that one has the list of 38. Okay, and then there's another one I have. One had 20 something, another one had like 38. So we'll post this other one also. All right. So there was an article from Forbes.com that came out in 2012. Okay, and this article talked about the the settlement that they had to pay to the federal government, okay, to the Department of Justice, I think it was. They had to pay a $25 billion settlement. And we'll pull up this article here from Forbes.com. Okay, it's called Here's What's in the $25 Billion Mortgage Settlement. Here's what's in the $25 billion mortgage settlement. So there are entities that you can target in each city when things like this happen. Number one are the banks. Number two are the sports teams, okay? The professional baseball team, basketball, football, hockey, all those damn sports teams. Because oftentimes they're building new stadiums and they're getting tax breaks on the backs of on the backs of taxpayers. Okay. Okay. So check out this article here. This is from Forbes.com. Here's what's in the $25 billion mortgage settlement, and they say it talks about how some details of the settlement with Ally Bank, formerly GMAC, Bank of America, Citicorp, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo are available here. But they talk about how they engaged in, they were basically robo-signing foreclosure notices, basically illegally taking a lot of people's homes, negotiating in bad faith, all different types of improprieties like this. Okay, let me post this article here so you can check this out also. Some of these banks you can open up an account with online also. I think One United Bank does that. They're the largest African American owned bank right now. I think One United Bank allows you to open up a bank account online. All right. So when you have economic boycotts, one of the mistakes that people make talking about economic boycotts, one thing they say, oh, we just need to have a day where we don't spend any money. Okay, that's not going to work. And then the next day you go buy the stuff you didn't buy the day before. No. You have targeted, sustained economic boycotts, right? So banks, number one, redirect dollars to African American owned banks and credit unions. Even if you can't close your bank account with Bank of America or Chase Bank, you may have a outstanding loan with them or something like that. Whatever it is, even if you can't close the bank account there, divert as much money as you can to an African American owned bank. Open up a bank account there. Okay. One of the reasons why is because a lot of these big banks are publicly traded companies. So when they have a massive number of people across the country closing bank accounts, guess what? That negatively impacts their stock price. And you can get a whole lot of people's attention. Now, the reason why you inflict economic boycotts is to inflict pain on the power structure that you're trying to push an agenda to get new laws, regulations, whatever it is, implemented. And this is a way to weaken them. All right. If you look at what happened in North Carolina, you had recently 250 businesses and corporations who imposed economic boycotts on the state of North Carolina behind the North Carolina bathroom bill. Nobody was shot and killed. Wasn't police brutality. All these businesses came out because transgender people could not piss in the toilet of their own choice. And you had all this upheaval. Now, where are these corporations where African Americans are being shot and killed in the street? Are these corporations going to come out in protest or economic boycotts of the state of Minnesota behind the killing of Philando Castile? Are they going to come out against Louisiana for the killing of Alton Sterling, or against Ohio for the killing of Tamir Rice and John Crawford III? So it's very interesting how a lot of these corporations can come out for LGBT, but they're quiet for BLACK. We spend billions of dollars a year with these companies. They can speak out for LGBT, but they're quiet for BLACK when we're being shot and killed in the street. I mean, transgender people are not dying because they can't piss in the toilet of their own choice. Let's be clear on this. If you go back to 2015, March of 2015, Governor Mike Pence at the time signed into law the Indiana Religious Freedom Law. Okay? There was all this upheaval. All these corporations came out. You had recording artists who canceled performances and concerts in the state of Indiana. You had Apple and PayPal and Angie's List and Sales.com, all these corporations. They either stopped projects that were taking place in the state of Indiana, or they said that they had extreme concern over what was going on, what have you. They're silent when African Americans are being shot and killed. Okay, so next you have sports teams. So you have lending institutions, and we posted the link there of the directory of African American owned banks. Next you have lending institutions. Sports teams. Football, basketball, hockey. A lot of us don't go to hockey games. If you want to, I mean, we were the pioneers of hockey, but a lot of African Americans don't go to hockey games. We may buy the jerseys. Excuse me, it's 89 degrees here in Detroit, and I turn my air conditioner off because when I'm broadcasting, you can hear the air conditioner in the background, so I turn it off. So it's like 89 degrees here in Detroit. So we need to have economic withdrawal strategies of sports teams also. It's interesting how behind North Carolina, behind the transgender bill, the NBA pulled the All-Star game out of North Carolina and held it in another city, held it in another state because of the boycott. Have they canceled a game in a city because police were killing too many African Americans, or have they canceled a game in Chicago because too many African Americans were being shot and killed in Chicago? Did they cancel a game in Cleveland because Tamir Rice was shot and killed by Officer Timothy Loman? Or John Crawford III was shot on sight by officers in Ohio? I think it was Beaver Creek, Ohio. He had an air rifle in his hand that he picked up off a shelf in Walmart because they sell air rifles there. And Ohio is an open carry state. So it's actually legal for him to be in there with a gun. It's actually legal. Ohio is an open carry state. So those watching, be sure to share this broadcast on your own Facebook page also. Okay. Please share this broadcast on your Facebook page. All right, how's everybody doing today? I wanted to broadcast under better circumstances, because I was going to do a broadcast anyway to talk about the class I was doing tonight, and I was going to talk about a couple other topics, but I wanted to broadcast under better circumstances. But this broke, so I said we have to talk about this. Okay, Eric said hell no. Now, what are you saying hell no to, Eric? Let me get some of your comments here. We'll continue here for a few more minutes. So how's everybody doing? Number one. And two, those just tuning in, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Done national radio for years. I do radio on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation here in Detroit. I'm in documentaries like the Black Friday documentaries, Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint from Dr. Boyce Watkins, Your Black World Films. Elementary Genocide Part 3 is about to come out. I'm featured in that also. Professor Kappa Kamene and Booker T. Coleman, two of my teachers. I'll be in Atlanta July 15th through the 17th for the Black Homeschooling Conference. I'm there each year, the Black Homeschooling Conference. Go to liberatedmindsexpo.com, liberatedmindsexpo.com for more information on that. They won't stop a game. Okay. If there are any trolls, let me know. Yeah, they won't stop a game, anything like this. This is why we have to redistribute the pain to them. We have to leverage the dollars that we spend with certain corporations, have targeted, sustained economic boycotts, and you push your agenda. So what happens is, in a city, say for instance like Chicago was correct to have protests behind the Laquan McDonald killing. And on a Black Friday was, I think, November 27th. I think it was November 27th, 2015. They had protests down Michigan Avenue, which was downtown area, the Magnificent Mile, and they're standing out protesting in front of businesses, things like this. Okay, but the protests can't be for a day. The economic withdrawal, the economic boycotts have to be sustained. They're targeted and sustained. So you have a sports team. So what do? You don't watch the games. You don't tweet about the games. Tweet on social media. Tweet about blackouts of the sports teams until these teams rise up and speak out on behalf of African Americans, like these entities do for LGBT, like they speak out for LGBT rights. I'm not mad at LGBT people doing what they had to do. I disagree with gay marriage. You get mad at me if you want to. You know, how is the U.S. Supreme Court going to rule on the constitutionality of marriage, and nowhere in the U.S. Constitution does it define what a marriage is? How can the U.S. Supreme Court rule on the constitutionality of marriage, and nowhere in the U.S. Constitution does it define what a marriage is? And the U.S. Supreme Court cannot write law or create law. They can only interpret law. The foundation of the fight was the 14th Amendment, but the 14th Amendment of 1868 was created only for African Americans. It was based upon the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which came about because the Civil Rights Act of 1865, right after slavery ended, was vetoed by President Andrew Jackson. Or Johnson. Andrew Johnson. Okay, so It was Andrew Jackson was the other white supremacist who's a hero of Donald Trump, who signed the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Andrew Johnson was Abraham Lincoln's vice president, who became president when Lincoln was assassinated April 14th at the Ford Theater, 1865. April 14th. He dies the next morning about 7:22 a.m. Shot by John Wilkes Booth. Okay, so you have sports teams. Stop buying their damn jerseys. Stop buying tickets to the games. Stop watching the games. We have a total blackout. Now, this should start in Minnesota, but you can start this in your own city. Now, anytime economic boycotts happen, they have to go national. They cannot be local. The real power comes when they go national, and African Americans across the country, they start boycotting Chase Bank and Bank of America and Wells Fargo. Okay? And you putting economic pressure on them across the country. That's when we're at our strongest. It's not when it just happens in the city. Okay? St. Paul, Minnesota, or St. Anthony, Minnesota. No. When it goes national. Because what happens is you'll find out that other people of other races and ethnic groups, they'll see that the cause is right and just. They'll want to join in also. But even if they don't join in, even if it's just African Americans across the country, you have a bigger impact when you can take it national as opposed to when it's just local. This is one of the mistakes that we make. And we have more tools to take it national. We got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, text messaging, emails, YouTube. We have all the tools to take it national now for a limited cost. If you go back to 1960, if you watch Eyes on the Prize, I think it's the third installment, Ain't Scared of Your Jails, Eyes on the Prize. They talk about the they talk about the Easter 1960 boycott of the downtown businesses in Nashville, Tennessee. And this was to break the back of segregation. So they had economic boycotts of the white businesses in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Now, Nashville, Tennessee in 1960, African Americans spent $50 million. $10 million of those dollars were spent in the downtown business district. Okay? And they had sit-ins at the lunch counters. But what happened was these boycotts spread to about 69 cities across the country. And African Americans in northern cities who could go to Woolworths, they could go to Kresge's, they could go and give full service at the same stores that their brothers and sisters were being discriminated against in the South. African Americans in the North boycotted those same stores. They took that boycott national. Before social media, before cell phones and text message, they had enough sense to do this. So, see, what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you've been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Okay, so when we look at the article, dealing with what's in the $25 billion settlement, they talk about how, okay, so the big banks, these big banks were behind subprime mortgage, the subprime mortgage scandal and massive foreclosures, robo-signing, foreclosure notice, etc. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, others. And let me see if I can see something here quickly in the article. And this is why credit unions are so important also, because at credit unions you can get lower loans, lower percentage rates on the loans, interest rates on the loans, and also you are a member, you're a part owner of that institution also with credit unions. Okay, banks resisted. Okay, so states attorney generals and the federal government announced a $25 billion settlement with 5 of the biggest mortgage lenders over a laundry list of improprieties, from robo-signing foreclosure documents to failing to negotiate in good faith with homeowners over inflated fees and other charges that pushed them into default. And this, and see, we have to understand that African Americans, we lost 53% of our wealth because of the downturn in the housing industry. Because for many of us, the biggest asset we had was our home. We lost over $1 trillion worth of wealth, and it's going to take, at the current rate, it's going to take 2 generations for us to get that back. We lost over $1 trillion worth of wealth. All right. Okay. So we'll take some of your comments here. How's everybody doing? If you like this type of information, also, you follow us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and we do broadcasts. You know, when I'm on the radio, we broadcast on Facebook Live. We do other broadcasts throughout the day also, and we post articles. Also, if you like this type of information, you can register for my online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That class meets on Fridays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to post a link here. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. We're going to teach tonight. Tonight we're going to start about 7:30, man, because I got sidetracked with this broadcast. Had to do this broadcast. So let's see here. But you can register for that. And we have, let's see, we have 5 classes we've already done, so you can watch all that content. And then we have, there's about 10 or 12 hours of bonus content there also for you. Okay, Billy Baker on Facebook said every police officer should be required by law to personally carry at least $10 million malpractice insurance. That might negate the municipalities having to acquire, municipalities have for acquiring them when they commit murder. You know, okay, that's interesting. That is one of the planks on the platform of 1 million conscious black voters and contributors, requiring that police officers have malpractice insurance. Okay, but that's going to, but those are things that have to be on agendas, and various organizations in African American cities across the country have to push these agendas. But the other thing is crucial, and this is the point that we miss. If you allow elected officials to stay in office that you claim are mistreating you, then all the protesting basically goes out the window, because they look at this and say you're not serious. Because when it comes time to vote their asses out of office, and you stay at home watching Sanford and Son, Good Times, in a different world, and you don't come out and vote them out of office, you send a clear message really that you're not really serious. Okay? Because when you vote them out of office, that's another way of redistributing the pain. Because the last thing that elected officials want is to get voted out of office, especially if it's in a landslide, because that is embarrassing. And you send a clear message that, number one, you're paying attention. Number two, you're not going to tolerate it anymore. But if you just stay at home, so you can go out and march and protest all you want to, but if you don't come out and vote their behinds out of office and redistribute the pain to them like that, and let them know that you're not going to take it, then what they'll say is that, hey, they protest and they complain, but they're not really serious. We can continue to mistreat them the way we're mistreating them. All right. So Henry said, on the scene, instant drug testing should be done on every officer involved in the police shooting. Independent drug testing by citizens concerned. Now, those are things that'll be in the police contract. Those are issues that have to be pushed by our organizations to the city. The city negotiates with the police with the police union negotiates the police officer's contract usually. So in these different cities, these different municipalities, you have to read the police officer's contract so you understand how things proceed when a shooting takes place. This is why in most cities across the country, if a officer shoots a civilian, they're put on desk duty. They're put on paid administrative leave or desk duty or something like this. Why? It's stipulated in their contract. So you just protesting saying you want them fired, usually it doesn't work. Why? Because it violates their contract. If they violate their contract that's in black and white, that's legally binding, the city will lose. They'll have to pay out a large settlement. So this is why I tell activists, and I've interviewed activists, I've interviewed Black Lives Matter activists. This is why I tell activists, if you're going to engage with law enforcement, two things you have to understand. Number one, you have to understand law. Number two, you have to understand history. Because if you don't understand law and you don't understand history, you're going to get yourself in a world of trouble. And you probably won't have the money to get your ass out of that trouble either. You have to understand law, and you have to understand history. And if we understood history and we understood how Richard Nixon became president in 1968 on the platform of law and order, which is a backlash to the Black Power movement, to the Black Panther Party for self-defense, a backlash to the 159 violent uprisings that took place in 1967, like Newark, New Jersey, and Detroit, and Watts, things like this. It was a backlash to the 125 rebellions that took place in this country when Dr. King was assassinated April 4th, 1968. It was a backlash to the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65. It was Richard Nixon becoming president, who ran on the platform of law and order, was a backlash to all of that. If we understood that, then we could see Donald Trump coming and head him off. Because Donald Trump ran on the platform of law and order, and he was a backlash to 2 terms of the first African-American president, President Barack Obama. John Hanson was not president. I just broadcasted another video about that today. Stop spreading. You need to stop telling that nonsense. Trump was a backlash to the Black Lives Matter movement, and you see how he's reversing civil rights policies in his administration with different departments. Once again, read the article from rawstory.com. Trump administration quietly rolls back civil rights efforts across federal government. Okay? Now, these are policies in departments that a lot of these people telling you don't vote don't even know exists. These are policies in departments that a lot of these people telling you don't vote, they don't even know this stuff exists. And now it's being rolled back. So this is an example of how elections have consequences. And we cannot be taken out by our own ignorance. We cannot be taken out by our own ignorance, because this is what's happening right now. We're being taken out by our own ignorance. And when you have bad information, you make bad decisions. We're going to post this article right here. This is from rawstory.com. This article came out yesterday from rawstory.com. This article came out yesterday. All right. So look, guys, I got to get out of here. Lastly, in addition to the economic boycotts you talked about, now read this article that I wrote. Why did Dr. King tell us to redistribute the pain? Understanding the power of economic withdrawal. Okay, you just go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Right on the home page, click on the link, read articles by Michael Imhotep. You can read all the articles that are right there, okay? Because I give numerous examples. I talk about the TV show Sorority Sisters. And in November, December 2014, we got that TV show off the air because African-American organizations went after their advertisers, and 19 advertisers pulled advertising dollars from that TV show, okay, because we put economic pressure on them. If you look at Bill O'Reilly, his show was canceled from Fox News. He was fired from Fox News after having the top-rated cable news show for 15 years because 80 advertisers pulled their economic support from his show. They didn't do it out of the kindness of their own hearts. They did it because pressure was put on them by various organizations. One of the main organizations that was at the forefront of this was called colorofchange.org, an African-American organization, colorofchange.org. And they had their members and followers sign a petition with over 350,000 names on it. They were contacting various advertisers, putting pressure on them to remove economic support from Bill O'Reilly's TV show, and 80 advertisers withdrew economic support, and it forced Fox News to fire Bill O'Reilly. There was so much pressure on them. Okay, now this just happened in the last couple of months. There was an article from HuffingtonPost.com dealing with that. I was trying to find that article. I have so many articles here. Thought I had that. Thought I had that article bookmarked. We'll try to find it here. Policy needs reform. Now, if all else fails, we really need to study the feasibility of withholding our city income taxes, because it's your city income taxes that pays the police officer's salary. So why would you pay their salary if they're mistreating you? So in these various cities where police misconduct is going on like this, people really need to study the feasibility of withholding their city income taxes and pushing for police reform. And in addition to the economic boycotts of the downtown business district, the withdrawal from the banks, boycotting the sports teams, because the owners of the sports teams and the corporations that own the banks, they're all in bed with the city government in these different cities. They're all in bed together. Okay? Don't be mistaken. They're all in bed together. This is why they get whatever they want. When they're building new stadiums here in Detroit. Okay? And they're doing it with, they're giving tax breaks to Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm so glad Golden State beat the hell out of Cleveland Cavaliers. I didn't want Cleveland to win. I can't stand Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert donated $750,000 to Donald Trump's campaign, held a private campaign fundraiser for Donald Trump here in Detroit, the Detroit area. Okay, so I'm not a fan of Dan Gilbert, and he treated LeBron James like a runaway slave when LeBron James left Cleveland. He treated him like a runaway slave. Now, if LeBron James leaves Cleveland again, is Dan Gilbert going to go back to slave master mentality and treat him like a runaway slave again? Just a thought. But it's a legitimate question. Okay, check out that article. I was trying to find it here. About color change. It's not coming up. But go to Huffington Post Black Voices, and you can check it out. It's dealing with a black organization that got Bill O'Reilly off the air. Colorchange.org. Bill O'Reilly. I thought I had it bookmarked, but I have a few thousand articles bookmarked. This is not coming up. Okay. Yeah, name of this article, "This Black Org Helped Oust Bill O'Reilly by Hitting Fox Where It Hurts." Okay, and this is what Dr. King was trying to explain to us. April 3rd, 1968, the day before he was assassinated. Now, he wasn't assassinated because of this article. I mean, because of this speech. That was already in the works. All right. But we just posted the link there. Okay, Deanna. All right, thanks, Deanna. Yeah, Nike is the Greek, is the winged goddess of victory. Nike is the winged goddess of victory. Nike comes out of Greek mythology. That's where Nike comes from. Okay, Keisha said the KKK is still controlling the police departments. KKK found in Pulaski, Tennessee, December 24th, 1865, right after slavery ends. All right, so guys, okay. So, did you all learn anything from this? How did you all like this broadcast? Did you all learn anything? Do you need me to post the link again for my online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school? Understanding the Transatlantic Slave. Okay, if you need me to post that link again, let me know. I'll post that again. We'll start that class at about 7:30 tonight. I have to get ready for that. Vivian said, I loved it. Paul said thanks. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page also. We had like 15,000 people that watched at least a portion of this. Please share this broadcast on your Facebook page. And also, if you're going to be a protester, you want to understand the law. Okay, because when I see, and this is another thing, man, I tell Black Lives Matter activists things like this. You have to be careful who you have at your protests, because a lot of times you'll have agitators or agent provocateurs who'll come there and they'll try to incite people to attack the police, and then to get the police to respond. Now you have to understand what happens. This gets shown in the loop across the country on the news, especially Fox News. And Fox News paints the narrative. So you have to understand how powerful Fox News is. And Fox News was founded by Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes just recently died. There is a God. Have no sympathy for him whatsoever. Have no sympathy for Roger Ailes whatsoever. But a lot of people don't understand how powerful the Fox News network is. And Bill O'Reilly was doing TV and doing radio. Sean Hannity does TV on Fox News, and he has a radio show. Some of those other hosts also have radio shows. And you have white people who sit up and listen to conservative talk radio all day and watch Fox News all day. This influences the way they vote. This influences policies they support. This influences how they see evidence when they sit on a jury. See, I've been studying media for 25 years. I'm in media. People don't understand how powerful Fox News is and how powerful right-wing media is. So when you have protest marches, you can't have people acting a fool attacking police, because what happens is they show this in the loop over and over again on Fox News and say these protesters attack the police. And these protesters were talking about killing the officers and blah, 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 all this stuff. And it totally derails what your agenda, what your cause is. The other thing is you have people who come from out of town, not against people coming from out of town who are really trying to help the people who are living in a particular city. But you'll have people who come from out of town with their own agenda. They'll start throwing rocks at the police, things like this. They'll get people who live in that city in trouble, get them locked up. These out-of-towners will leave and go back home, then leave the people in the city trying to figure out how to get their children out of jail. Because these people came from out of town who didn't mean any good, trying to stir up trouble, promote whatever anarchy organization they have, all types of nonsense like this. These are things you have to watch out for, because this stuff is real. Okay? All right. Sherilyn said media in America is owned by 6 to 8 corporations. The 6 corporations. 6 corporations control 90% of what you read, see, and hear. But even then, there's still a lot of good information in the media. You have to know where to go. MSNBC, NBC. I monitor about 35 different media outlets on a daily basis. This is how I know this. I monitor about 35 different media outlets on a daily basis, including yourblackworld.net, which is 100% African American owned, AtlantaBlackStar.com, 100% African American owned. TheRoot.com has some good articles. They're not African American owned, but they service the African American community. They have some good articles. TheGrio.com is African American owned. That's owned by Byron Allen. Byron Allen just bought that like last year sometime, 2016 sometime. Okay. So even though you have 6 multinational media corporations that control 90% of what you read, see, and hear, not 100%, they control 90% of what you read, see, and hear. There's still, I mean, you should read Washington Post. You should read the New York Times. Okay. I'm not telling you to do things I don't do. I read the Washington Post, read the New York Times. MSNBC.com. I got MSNBC on here. I watch MSNBC between 6 and 10 hours a day. I do research. Look at the fact checking. Look at thinkprogress.org, rawstory.com. There's a lot of good news outlets out there. Okay. But we need more control of media. We control 1/35,000th of the media outlets in this country. 1/35,000th of the media outlets in this country. And Malcolm was correct when he said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. Malcolm was correct when he said that. And that's why we have to have more control of African-American owned media, support the advertisers of African-American owned media also. That's extremely important. Because I used to sell radio ads here in the city of Detroit for one of the largest radio stations here in the city years ago. So it's not just listening to African-American radio stations or talk radio. We also have to support those advertisers. So we have to understand how this works, because if those advertisers don't see an increase in business to justify them spending money each month advertising, guess what? They're going to stop advertising. And advertising is the lifeblood of radio stations. African-American talk radio is not a moneymaker. See, the hip-hop stations usually make more money than African-American talk radio, but African-American talk radio is extremely needed. So this is why you have to support the advertisers that advertise on those stations, because if the advertisers stop advertising, the stations cease to exist. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. You can register for our online course. You can also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Henry said Obama's youth leadership members are not to be trusted. If they take the lead, they will only act as existing politicals. Tell them who. Okay, I don't know who you're referring to. I do know the Department of Justice under President Obama was much better than the Department of Justice under Donald Trump and Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. I do know that because I followed the Department of Justice under President Obama. And a lot of policies that people don't even know exist, because people are focused on loving hip-hop and Real Housewives of Atlanta and different things like this, and not dealing with laws and policies. Those things are being reversed right now under Donald Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And this is an example how elections have consequences, because the people that told you to vote, they didn't say, well, wait a second, the next president is going to appoint an Attorney General. The Attorney General is over the Department of Justice. The Attorney General is over, the Department of Justice has a Civil Rights Division. The Attorney General is over the consent decrees. The Attorney General is over the investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments. They didn't say the next president is going to appoint a Secretary of Education. Secretary of Education is over the distribution of Pell Grants, over the distribution of guaranteed student loans. I mean, there are policies that Betsy DeVos is putting in place right now that are horrific for education. But this is something that we warn people about in Detroit, because we've been dealing with Betsy DeVos for years here in Detroit with the charter schools, because her and her husband, Dick DeVos, are behind a charter school initiative in the state of Michigan, and it's devastated Detroit. We've gone from 200 public schools to traditional public schools to 100 traditional public schools and about 100 charter schools. And Betsy DeVos and Dick DeVos are behind this. They're advocates of school choice and vouchers and things like this. And those have a very racist history, because you see an increase in private schools, school vouchers, things like this, after Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, desegregation case. So this is what happens when people don't understand history and don't understand policy. Two main ways to understand politics. Politics is, number one, the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Number two, the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. The writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Those are two main ways to understand politics. Okay? And we are clueless on that. Very quickly here, first two paragraphs of this article. Trump administration quietly rolls back civil rights efforts across federal government. Okay? Now, while people are dealing with conspiracy theories and keeping up with the Kardashians and love and hip hop and things like this stuff is going on right now. This is real. Rawstory.com, this article came out June 15th, 2017. For decades, for decades, the Department of Justice has used court-enforced agreements to protect civil rights, successfully desegregated school systems, reforming police departments, ensuring access for the disabled, and defending the religious. Now, under Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, the DOJ appears to be turning away from this storied tool called consent decrees, which we just talked about. Top officials in the DOJ Civil Rights Division have issued verbal instructions through the ranks to seek settlements without consent decrees. Okay, those don't have a lot of teeth. Consent decrees have teeth in them because there's federal oversight. Top officials in the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division have issued verbal instructions through the ranks to seek settlements without consent decrees, which would result in no continuing court oversight. No continuing court oversight. The move is just one part of a move by the Trump administration to limit federal civil rights enforcement. This move is just one part of a move by the Trump administration to limit federal civil rights enforcement. Didn't Donald Trump ask African Americans, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Vote for Trump. Try something new. No, you're not something new. You're something old. You're something that was already tried before. And Richard Nixon, you're something that's already tried before. See, this is an example of when you don't understand what was accomplished under the previous administration, then you don't understand what you have to lose. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you a document that most people have never seen before. Unfortunately, a lot of our people don't do research. Okay? This document is it's called Progress of the African American Community During the Obama Administration. Progress of the African American Community During the Obama Administration. How many people have seen this document before? How many people have read this before? I've read it a few times. This deals with how policies from the Obama administration positively impacted the African American community. And these are things that are being reversed under Donald Trump. Now, what happened was, if you didn't know that they exist, you don't know what to fight for. This is one of the problems. If you don't know it exists and you don't know how policy is benefiting you, you don't know what to fight for. You don't know what to try to maintain. All right. So read this document, because unfortunately most of our people haven't read it. Unfortunately, most of our people don't do research. If you plug into the African History Network, we deal with information like this on a daily basis. And I deal with facts and evidence. I don't deal with emotions. I don't deal with beliefs. 99% of what I talk about are facts and evidence. Proper documentation ends all conversation. And you may have heard me say before, if we disagree, let's disagree based upon the facts and the evidence, not the fact that you don't want to deal with the evidence. If we disagree, let's disagree based upon the facts and the evidence, not the fact that you don't want to deal with the evidence. Okay. Now, also, you should go to also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, download the document called "What Did Trump Do?" What did Trump do? Okay. This deals with the first 100 days of the Donald Trump administration and how policies implemented in the first 100 days and appointments he made, how this has negatively impacted the African American community. What did Trump do? Okay. First 100 days. You can download this. Go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, and this document is from the Congressional Black Caucus, cbc.gov, from the Congressional Black Caucus. We have it right on the homepage of our website. You can download it. It's a free document to download. And also, if you go to cbc.house.gov, cbc.house.gov, also download a document called "We Have a Lot to Lose." We have a lot to lose, okay? And this is also from the Congressional Black Caucus. This is the 125-page agenda that the Congressional Black Caucus presented to Donald Trump and his administration on March 22nd, 2017. They also presented it, if I remember correctly, they spoke to members of Congress also, they presented there as well. But they presented it to Donald Trump. So this is a 125-page agenda that deals with problems in the African American community, and it deals with solutions to these problems, and it deals with policies that can be enacted to address these issues. Okay, this is from the Congressional Black Caucus. They did a hell of a job with this plan also. And the first thing they did was they laid out history of African Americans in this country, going back to slavery, dealing with Civil War, Reconstruction, Compromise of 1877, Jim Crow era, black codes, and they deal with how history, historical events, and public policies have put African Americans in the position we are today. And then they they break things down by category, whether you're talking about criminal justice reform, whether you're talking about health care, education, jobs, things like this. Entrepreneurship, funding for businesses. They break it down by category, and then they lay out solutions to remedy these problems, and they lay out the policies that can be enacted to address these problems also. It's called "We Have a Lot to Lose." Okay, let me grab this. This is in my backpack. I'll show it to you right quick. Hold on, don't go anywhere. I'll show it to you. Okay. All right, so, okay, this is "We Have a Lot to Lose." You can download this from the Congressional Black Caucus website, cbc.house.gov, cbc.house.gov, okay, cbc.house.gov. Download it there. I downloaded it, took it to the printer, got it printed up, got it wire bound. I've been studying it, okay? And if you listen to some of my shows when this came out, we talked about this. I also talked about this on the morning show here in Detroit on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. I'm on every Thursday on the morning show, Wake Up with Steve Hood. Shout out to Steve Hood. I think this is Steve Hood's birthday today. He invited me to his birthday party, but I don't think I'm going to make it this evening. So this is called "We Have a Lot to Lose: Solutions to Advance Black Families in the 21st Centuries." Solutions to advance black families in the 21st centuries. Now, everybody's talking about we need a plan, we need a plan. Okay, you can start with this right here. Seriously, you can start with this right here, because this has elements that every African American organization across the country, whether you are a Block Club, Black Lives Matter organization, whether you're NAACP, Black Parent Organization, Man to Man, Brothers in the Hood, whatever you are, there are elements in here you can take to form a very powerful agenda, a very powerful plan, a very powerful agenda. Now, this agenda needs to be downloaded and read and implemented by African Americans all across the country. This is not something to just get wire-bound and put on the shelf along with the rest of the plans you may have that haven't been implemented. Okay? Because what we have to understand is that you need organizations all across the country pushing this on a local, on a state, and on a national level. It has to come from the ground up. And you push this on a local, on a state, and national level. Okay? Unfortunately, we look at the CBC, or we just look at the president and think everything's supposed to come from the top down. Now, some things will come from the top down, like the budget, this horrific budget that Donald Trump has submitted to the House of Representatives, okay, which hopefully will be altered in the House, but who knows, some of these Republicans here. Some of these Republicans, like Paul Ryan, Steve Scalise, who got shot yesterday, okay? I think it was yesterday, Steve Scalise, was the day before yesterday, whatever it was, day before yesterday, Steve Scalise was shot, okay? Some of these Republicans here, some of these draconian ones, and now you have the U.S. Senate, who you have Republicans in the U.S. Senate writing the health care plan behind closed doors, and Democrats in the U.S. Senate haven't even seen it. Claire McCaskill just called them out. She said, we're not invited to these meetings. We have no idea what's in this plan. Dude, people have to understand something called karma. People have to understand something called karma. And when you inflict economic violence on people, like Republicans are doing, the universe has a way of coming back and getting you for that. What they are doing is immoral and ungodly. And they're going to have to atone to the universe for this. Okay, now, the other one, what did Trump do? What did Trump do the first 100 days? Now, a lot of people don't know this exists. This is from the Congressional Black Caucus also. This just came out a couple of months ago. What did Trump do? And what they do is they lay out policies. They have 100 items in here. Okay, what did Trump do the first 100 days? Hashtag stay woke list. They have 100 items in here. And this deals with how policies from Donald Trump, appointments he's made, nominations he's made, like Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, horrific. Some ways Neil Gorsuch is worse than Antonin Scalia. And Antonin Scalia was horrible. Neil Gorsuch is Jim Crow Esquire. He's Jim Crow in a suit with a law degree. That's what Neil Gorsuch is. Okay. This lays out 100 items from the Trump administration, implemented by the Trump administration, how they negatively impact the African American community. Show this to your millennials, because a lot of millennials don't understand politics, and they don't understand how policies impact them. No offense to any millennials watching, but half the millennials are living at home with their parents. Y'all know, because some of them are living with you. Half the millennials are living at home with their parents, and they're being subsidized by their parents. They're on their parents' car insurance. They're on their parents' cell phone bill, on their family plan. They may use their parents' passcode for Netflix and Hulu. May use their Wi-Fi code for internet. So a lot of millennials, now some of them are living by themselves and fully supporting themselves, but a lot of them are living at home with their parents. And they are being and their bad decisions that they make, oftentimes many of them don't feel the full economic repercussions of these bad decisions because they're being financially supported by their parents. So when they decide not to vote, or they decide to vote for Jill Stein, because a lot of their white college friends are voting for Jill Stein, and they think it's cute. Then Donald Trump gets elected, then they want to go out on the street and protest. Well, the best way to protest is at the ballot box. Because a lot of people who are out protesting after Donald Trump won, a lot of them didn't vote. A lot of those people did not vote. And their parents are going to be the ones to really pay the price. You have The CBO, Congressional Budget Office, came out with the report and said 23 million people over the next few years are going to be kicked off of health care with the plan that the House of Representatives approved. Did you know that you have 3 million non-elderly African Americans who now have health insurance under Obamacare that did not already have health insurance? This is what happens when you don't understand the progress that's been made, and people want to talk about Obama didn't do anything for black people, but they haven't read the document that I presented to you. They haven't read none of that. They don't know that the life expectancy for African Americans is the highest it's ever been in U.S. history. They don't know that the graduation rate for African Americans from high school is the highest it's ever been in U.S. history. They don't know that we have more African American college graduates than we've ever had in U.S. history. Read that document, because these policies are going to be reversed by Trump. Now, a lot of people organizing across the country because of this document, Indivisible. Indivisible, a practical guide for resisting the Trump agenda. Indivisible, you could download this also from indivisibleguide.com. Indivisibleguide.com. A practical guide for resisting the Trump agenda. Now, this was put together by former congressional staffers that studied how the Tea Party planned and retaliated and protested against President Barack Obama. And they took those strategies and put together this document. So when you saw the town hall meetings regarding health care in the last few months that people were having, and you saw constituents protesting against their representatives and members of the U.S. Senate, especially Republicans, because Republicans dominate both houses of the legislature. The House of Representatives is about 237 Republicans to about 149 Democrats. They dominate the House of Representatives. And in the U.S. Senate, it's 52 Republicans to 46 Democrats plus 2 independents, Bernie Sanders and Angus King. Those are 2 independents in the U.S. Senate. So you saw protests at the town hall meetings and protests outside their offices all across the country, and every Tuesday people were organizing. Well, many of them were organizing based upon this document here. So you can go to indivisibleguide.com, indivisibleguide.com, download this document, it's free. And the African Americans all across the country, many of them organizing, we need more organizing. Many of them organized, and they can start with these documents here. What's the third one? Now, this fourth document, this is a study dealing with the cost of segregation. I talked about this on my show a few weeks ago. The cost of segregation. And I talked about this back in April, around April 18th or so. The cost of segregation. Billions in lost wages, thousands of people without the education they need to fill their potential, hundreds of lives cut short by violence. These are among the steep costs all of us in the Chicago region pay by living so separately from each other. So what this dealt with segregation of opportunity. This was a nationwide study done, and they focused on Chicago. They did a study, they analyzed segregation patterns in the 100 largest metropolitan areas in the country. They examined 3 types of segregation: economic segregation, African American white segregation, and Latino white segregation. Okay, but this is a very interesting study here. They talked about this on News One Now with Roland Martin. I saw that story and read some stories about it, so I went to their website and downloaded this study. So just Google, I forgot the website to get this from. I downloaded it, took it, and got it printed. Just download the cost of segregation. Download the cost of segregation Chicago, the cost of segregation Chicago, and the study should come up. Okay. All right. Yeah, we posted the link for the documents. We posted a link for the documents. Go to cbc.house.gov. cbc.house.gov, and you could download We Have a Lot to Lose, and also what did Trump do? Okay. And what did Trump do? We have at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com also. Right on the homepage. You can download that right on the homepage. All right. So hopefully you all learned something. You can register for my online class also. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We're going to do this class tonight, probably about 8 o'clock. And as soon as you register, you can watch the 5 previous weeks. All the sessions are recorded, and then there's about 10 or 12 hours of bonus content also. And we'll put this video, we'll make this video available with the content also as well, okay? All right. Okay, Henry said, Lakeem said we need to separate more than ever, but we must stop fighting each other first. Well, we have to get some resources to separate, and we have to understand. See, Dr. John Henry Clark said it best. He said before you come to me talking about separating and having a nation, he said we have to acquire the skills that are needed to run a nation. You have to understand political structures, economics. You have to understand agriculture, oceanography. Okay, you have to understand how to run a nation, how to manage a nation. So we have to acquire those skills. Okay. Okay, Marcus Young said a resistance is forming in the Twin Cities. Okay. Is there, you have a link to an article or anything? I did not have a chance to get, usually what I do is I monitor local news sources. Okay. So, I follow a lot of news, local news stations. Okay. I follow a lot of local news stations, and I didn't get a chance to follow any of them for this breaking news story here. Okay, so I'm on KRE Channel 11's Twitter page right now. I follow a lot of them on Twitter, a lot of these news outlets on Twitter, because I'm in media. And KRE Channel 11, an hour ago, Lindsay Sievert posted, waiting at Minnesota Capitol in St. Paul, where a rally will begin at 7 p.m. for Philando Castile. Choi. Now, who is Choi? Somebody said, as hard as this is, we have to accept this verdict. It must be respected. Yeah, whatever. You don't have to accept that verdict. You better fight the power. I don't mean with violence. I'm talking about redistribute the pain through economic boycotts. Okay. So what we'll do on our Facebook page, if there are any live streams that I see, we'll post those on our Facebook fan page. Okay. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. You know, I brought dinner home to eat, and I only had a few bites of it, and I jumped on this broadcast because I didn't want to get too late. Exactly, turn off the TV and cable. Denise, well, look, I wouldn't say turn off the TV and cable. Be selective of what you watch. Watch News One Now with Roland Martin Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch News One Now with Roland Martin. You can also go follow Roland Martin on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, number one, the African History Network. If you don't follow us on Facebook, definitely follow us on Facebook. We have 970,000 followers, 978,000 followers. Follow us on Facebook. We post a lot of information, current events, news. We have videos like this. We post information about history. Follow Roland Martin on Facebook at Roland Martin, or watch News One Now with Roland Martin on TV One. Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out news1.com. They have a lot of good stories there. Watch Joanne Reed on MSNBC every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Joanne Reed, she has a lot of good stories, a lot of topics pertaining to African Americans she'll deal with that other shows on MSNBC won't watch. I won't deal with, I know, because I watch all the shows on MSNBC. Okay? I watch MSNBC between 6 to 10 hours a day because I do research all throughout the day. All right? So we have to be selective in what we watch. I even watch Reverend Al Sharpton show, Politics Nation, every Sunday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. He has some good topics on there also. So we have to be selective in what we watch. I think the Shark Tank is a good show, so to orientate many of our minds to entrepreneurship. My degree's in business administration. You know, I've taught entrepreneurship for years, majored in marketing. I've been involved in, you know, I've studied entrepreneurship, economic empowerment, African history, African American history for 25 years, and media for 25 years. So there's some good shows on TV, okay, but a lot of them are garbage. All right, on Facebook, somebody asked for our Facebook page. Follow us on Facebook at the African History Network. Follow us on Facebook at the African History Network. All right, I got to get out of here. Hey, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All of my DVD lectures are there. I have about 35 of my lectures on DVD. So if you like the type of information that I talked about, I have a lot of DVD lectures that teach this type of information. You can read all my articles at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also, we have a recommended reading list of books at our website. Also, recommended reading list of about 60 books there. We have some solutions that we can implement in our communities right now. Also, our website connects you to our YouTube channel where we have over 600 video clips. This video will be on our YouTube channel also. We have over 31,000 followers on our YouTube channel. I don't use YouTube a lot, but in the past couple of weeks I've been using it a lot more, being more consistent with posting videos on YouTube. And follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and tunein.com, and Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, tunein.com, Periscope, Instagram, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. And remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now this corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. This is why we can't run around calling ourselves the N-word, dehumanizing ourselves in our music, sexually objectifying our women in our music. You know, I've talked about that in the past few days. Check out the broadcasts on YouTube. I dealt with that. We dealt with Ice Cube, Bill Maher, and the history of the N-word. We dealt with negative hip-hop, all different types of things like that, okay? Those negative messages are allowed to be in our music coming out of white supremacy and racism to target our youth, to help destroy our youth. Because those same record companies have white artists, and they don't allow those messages to go out targeted to white youth. They don't do that. It's because the executives that are mainly white at these corporations care about white youth, and they don't care about African American youth. Okay? So when you listen to, you know, when I travel, I listen to Slacker Radio a lot. Or when I'm on the exercise bike, I listen to Slacker Radio a lot. I listen to the day's hits. So it's a lot of, you know, top 40 music. You have a lot of white artists, a lot of top 40 music, all right? You have some African American artists, some crossover artists, Nicki Minaj, Drake, Lil Wayne, Flo Rida, Rick Ross, things like this, Jason Derulo, The Weeknd. Right, you have those crossover artists. Most of the artists are white, When you listen to their music, they're not talking about killing each other. They're not talking about guns for the most part. You may have a song here or there, but the majority of their songs, they're talking about love, relationships, and marriage. Love, relationships, and marriage. They may be talking about bad relationships, things like that, but a lot of their songs promote love, relationships, and marriage. There's very, very little references to drugs in their music, even though they're dropping dead of heroin overdoses all across the country. Very little talk about killing one another, very little talk about shooting one another, very little talk about guns, even though white people have more guns than African Americans. And most of the gun shops are in white communities, not our communities. If you go to the gun shows, it's mainly white people at the gun shows, but it's not showing up in their music like it's put into our music. When you listen to their music, they're not dehumanizing their women, calling them B's and H's and hoes and things like this for the most part in their music. You don't have the objectification of women like you do in negative hip hop. Now, African American R&B is usually a little different, because African American R&B, they're more likely to talk about love, relationships, and marriage, things like this. In general, is usually more powerful, more uplifting. But the commercialized negative hip hop is very destructive. I'm not against hip hop in general. I grew up listening to hip hop. I'm against the commercialized, destructive hip hop that's targeted towards our youth. Okay, that's what I'm against. All right. So we have to get out of here. Hey, what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.